Montana and Wyoming are home to some of America's greatest national parks: Glacier, Yellowstone, and Grand Tetons. And if you're planning a trip out west, in this video, we're going to show you how to plan the ultimate Montana and Wyoming road trip.
Turn it all around, hang it upside down, we can get a little lost and found. It don't matter where we are, but no, we're getting there.
Glacier will go down as one of our favorite national parks, and for a couple reasons. Compared to other national parks that have become more commercialized, Glacier still has a rugged feel. Sometimes we found ourselves completely alone on the trails. Well, unless we came across wildlife. The campgrounds weren't overcrowded, and we felt more free to wander and explore off the beaten path. Glacier Park International is the closest airport to the park. It's located in Kalispell, which is only 30 miles from the west entrance. This is where we picked up our rental car and grabbed some groceries. There are several lodging options inside and outside the park. But before we get there, I should say, whether you stay inside or outside the park, you'll have to drive anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour just to get to the trailhead parking lots. Lodging inside the park is quite expensive. However, if you go this route, you can stay in some super scenic locations, including the Mini Glacier Hotel. Airbnbs outside the park are slightly cheaper, but the downside is you'll have to drive into the park every day. And parking inside is quite limited, so you'll have to wake up extra early to drive in and claim a good parking spot. The cheapest option, which we chose, is camping. We booked a couple nights in Apgar Campground on the west side of the park, and then a couple nights at Mini Glacier Campground in the east side of the park. These are easily the best campsites of any national park we've been to. Apgar borders Lake McDonald, which is this amazingly clear lake with an epic mountain backdrop. And the Mini Glacier Campground borders Swift Current Lake, which is also very scenic and a great place to spot wildlife. You can reserve both campsites by going on to recreation.gov. Glacier has two entrances, the west and east. Each side requires a vehicle registration in order to travel the Going to the Sun Road or the Mini Glacier Road. You can register your vehicle on recreation.gov. In addition, you'll also have to pay the park entrance fee or flash your America the Beautiful pass. We'll break up what to do into the east and west sides of the park. On the west side, one of the best drives is on the Going to the Sun Road, which takes you from the entrance up to the Logan Pass Visitor Center. The windy roads take you up through the mountains, looking over stunning lakes and valleys, and once you get to the Visitor Center, it's a great place for spotting wildlife. The Logan Pass Visitor Center is also the start of some of the famous trails in the park, the most famous being the Highline Trail. There are a few ways you can begin the hike. The first way is parking at the Logan Pass Visitor Center and walking a couple hundred yards to the trailhead. The other option is starting at the loop and hiking down to the Logan Pass Visitor Center. Either way you choose, a shuttle runs back and forth between the 2 points every 30 minutes or so you can get back to your car. We opted for starting at the Visitor Center. Just make sure you get there before 6 a.m. or you will have trouble finding parking. The trail begins along a cliff face overlooking the road and valley below. It may be steep, but it's super safe. Some hikers choose just to do the first mile along the cliff face and then turn around and go back to the visitor center. But we recommend doing the full hike to see some epic views. Also, the park rangers do recommend bringing bear spray because hikers have been known to encounter brown bears, black bears, and the occasional grizzly. But we only saw a few deer, mountain goats, and a longhorn sheep. There is a detour to an overlook of Grinnell Glacier, and it adds about 1.6 miles round trip and about 900 feet of elevation. So, it is a challenge, but it is totally worth it. After the overlook, you'll arrive at Granite Park Chalet, where you can take in some more scenic views, and then it's only 4 more miles until you arrive at the loop, where you can take a shuttle back to the visitor center. Another trail starting at the visitor center is the hike to Hidden Lake. The hike itself is very easy as you take in views of the meadows surrounding the Logan Pass. The overlook is only 2.6 miles round trip. However, if you want to escape the crowds, continue on to Hidden Lake, making it a 5.2 mile round trip journey. Unfortunately, while we were there, the second half of the trail was closed due to bear activity. After enjoying a couple days of hiking, we took a dip in Lake McDonald. The lake is so clear you can see to the bottom even 100 yards out from the shore. It also has these gorgeous rainbow rocks. Now for the east side of the park. The first thing we recommend doing is walking around the mini Glacier Hotel. The towering mountains that border the hotel probably make it one of the best views from a hotel room anywhere in the world. And you don't have to be a guest at the hotel to enjoy it, swim in the lake, and spot wildlife from the porch. We saw some bears, moose, and some people even spotted some grizzlies mating.
What are we doing this morning?
Grinnell Glacier hike.
What Amanda and I would argue is one of the best hikes in all of Glacier is the hike to Grinnell Glacier. It's a 10.6 mile hike starting at the Grinnell Glacier trailhead. Once again, we recommend you get to the trailhead before 6 a.m. or you will not find a parking spot. The first 2.5 miles is mostly flat around some lakes, and then you'll begin the incline up to the glacier. But the incline isn't bad at all. It's steady with stunning views along the way. Finally, you'll arrive at Grinnell Glacier. It's a great spot to eat some lunch, take in the views, and even go for a polar dip if you dare. I think I'm going in.
Yep.
That was a little cold. Andrew Huberman, if this is what you mean by cold water showers, this is cruel and unusual. We spent 3.5 days in Glacier and thought it was a sufficient amount of time to enjoy both the east and west sides of the park. We were able to do all the big hikes we wanted, as well as see a lot of the sights. Now I know we only scratched the surface of all the park has to offer, so if we go back, we'd like to try out more hikes in the park. The next park we'd be exploring was Yellowstone, but we first made a stop in Bozeman to meet up with some friends. Bozeman is about a 5 to 6 hour drive from Glacier, so be ready to spend a half day just getting down there. Bozeman is a fun place to explore with plenty of outdoor things to do. We did some river tubing in the Madison and did some fly fishing. We then ventured into Yellowstone. There are two really nice things about Yellowstone. First, you don't need a vehicle reservation. You just pay the park entry fee or flash your America the Beautiful pass and enter. Second, Yellowstone is a very approachable park. You can drive up to each site, everything is well marked, and every hike is easy and probably paved. I will say up front, Yellowstone was not one of our favorite national parks. It's a lot of hot springs, geysers, and some wildlife spotting. So if any of those pique your interest, you may want to stay longer than we did. We spent 2 half days in Yellowstone, and that was just right for us. Here are some of the highlights. One of the larger and more colorful springs is the Grand Prismatic Spring. You can walk along the boardwalk to get different angles of the spring and feel the heat coming off the water. The Lamar Valley is your best chance at spotting wildlife. I honestly thought we'd see more animals driving through the park, but it was more scarce than I expected. However, we did spot a grizzly.
Finally.
Next, you'll want to check out the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, the Yellowstone Canyon. There's a nice viewing area where you can see a huge waterfall plummeting into the river. Last but not least, Old Faithful. Make sure you look up the estimated time of eruption because it could be a few hour gap, and then make sure to find a good seat to catch it going off. Now, if you're not planning to spend a lot of time in Yellowstone, we recommend hitting a lot of these attractions on your way to the Grand Tetons. If you don't stick to our itinerary driving south from Glacier into Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, the closest airport is Jackson Hole. Know that it will be more expensive to fly into Jackson, but it puts you within a few miles of the park. The park has a few lodging options, but they're all very expensive. The most convenient place to stay outside the park is in Jackson Hole. It puts you within a 10-minute drive of the park. However, you're gonna have to pay an arm and a leg to stay at any hotel or Airbnb in the town. But there are some options in Driggs and Victor and Idaho. The downside to this is you'll have to drive an hour to get into the park. Grand Teton, similar to Yellowstone, also doesn't have a vehicle registration fee at this time, just the park entry fee. We spent a total of 2 days in Grand Tetons, and I'd probably say it wasn't enough time. Usually I'm satisfied with the amount of time we spend in national parks, but after Grand Tetons, I left thinking we need to come back to explore more. The first hike we recommend is to Delta Lake. This hike is what they consider an unmaintained trail, which means at certain points the trail isn't clearly marked and you'll have to make your way over fallen rocks and trees. But don't worry, the trail is not very hard. You'll start at the Lupine Meadows parking lot. As long as you arrive before 7 a.m., you should be able to find a spot. You'll then make your way up the mountain, hopefully having clear views over Bradley Lake. The day we went was foggy going up, but on the way back down we had great views. Remember that there will be 6 switchbacks before the offshoot for the Delta Lake Trail. We recommend downloading all trails so that you don't miss your turn off for the Delta Lake Trailhead. The trail starts with some makeshift downhill dirt stairs, and you'll soon come across a boulder field. Scramble across the rocks and continue making your way uphill. The last push up to the lake is nearly vertical, but right on the other side is a gorgeous glacier lake. If you dare, you can even take a dip in the lake. On the way back down, we spotted a few bears, so you may want to carry some bear spray with you on this trail. One of the easiest hikes in the park with excellent views is the Jenny Lake Trail. The trail starts at the South Jenny Lake Junction parking lot, and you can either go east or west around the loop trail. Or, if you want to cut the trail in half, you can take a ferry to the opposite side of the lake. Once you reach the far side of the lake, there is also an option to hike up to Inspiration Point. The point gives you a 180-degree view of Jenny Lake. We also spotted some bears on this trail. If you want to see a stunning sunset, drive out to Mormon Row. This row has a bunch of old barns with the Tetons in the backdrop. It makes for a great photo op. Like I said, if we had a few more days, I think it would have been fun to explore more of the hikes in the park. So I don't think this will be our last trip out west. We said goodbye to the Tetons and headed back to Bozeman to fly out. Well, I hope this video helps you plan your Montana and Wyoming road trip. If we left anything out, please let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please check out the channel. See you in the next one.